The Incom T-65 X-Wing is the fighter that killed the Death Star. An almost perfect balance of speed, maneuverability, and defensive shields makes this the fighter of choice for Rogue Squadron, except when the mission profile disallows it. In addition to 4 blaster cannons, the X-Wing can carry a number of proton torpedoes. It's powered by 4 fusel thrust engines and requires an onboard astromech droid for peak performance.
Red 6 standing by.
Red 9 standing by.
Red 2 standing by.
Red 11 standing by.
Red 5 standing by.
Incom started mass production when the X-Wing was to become the main fighter of the Empire. The X-Wing project was cancelled shortly after the creation of the Empire, along with other contracts for starfighters, when the Empire decided to go exclusively with CNR's design for the TIE Fighter. This would rub Incom's higher-ups the wrong way, leading the executives to have the plans for the starfighter leaked to the Rebel Alliance and selling any fighters on hand to the fledgling rebellion. The X-Wing was so effective against the TIE Fighter, the Empire was forced to begin creating variants for the TIE Fighter, eventually leading to the development of the TIE Interceptor. The T-65B X-Wing would become the premier fighter for the Rebel Alliance, with the vision of a well-balanced starfighter that would excel in starfighter combat, along with being formidable against opposing capital ships. After the X-Wing's earliest use at the blockade of Lothal, which ended in a total loss of all starfighters, the Rebel Alliance's starfighter strategy would shift to making use of the fighter's onboard hyperdrive and astromech to conduct hit-and-run missions, which was demonstrated in the attack of the weapon research facility on Edo. The X-Wing's defense would consist of an adjustable shield generator, which would give it an edge over the TIE Fighter, enabling the Rebel fighter to take a few more shots if an eyeball would get behind the X-Wing. The 4 fusel thrust engines on the X-Wing provided the starfighter with greater maneuverability, using differential thrust through all 4 engines, and each engine had an infrared suppressor to conceal the heat from its exhaust, which was another defense for avoiding detection from Imperial scanners. The fighter also had a cruise mode, which would increase the fighter's overall speed while limiting its maneuverability. The design of the X-Wing would be based off the Z-95 clone starfighter. The X-Wing's predecessor boasted speed and maneuverability, along with a pair of wingtip laser cannons and recessed proton torpedoes. While having modest shields, the Headhunter would lack an astromech droid and hyperdrive, relying on carriers and hyperspace rings to make jumps. The X-Wing would get its name from its 2 strike foils, or S-foils for short, a feature that would be continued on from the ARC 170. When in an attack position, these S-foils would resemble an X, giving the X-Wing its name. On each of its S-foils sat a Time and Black laser cannon, giving the fighter 4 cannons, doubling the firepower compared to the Headhunter. When the X-Wing's S-foils were open, the cannons would be cycled to fire 1 at a time, 2 opposite cannons at a time, or all 4 cannons at a time. By default, each fighter's cannons would be set to intersect at 500 meters. When in cruise mode, the fighter's cannons would fire in longer intervals. The X-Wing would also boast 2 proton torpedo tubes, which were nestled on each side near the center of the fuselage. This would enable the starfighter to inflict significant damage to capital ships with coordinated attacks. The X-Wing rose to prominence during the Battle of Scarif, where Red Squadron would protect the Rebellion's capital ships and provide cover for the Y-Wings attacking Star Destroyers and TIE Fighters. All the while, Blue Squadron would provide air support for the U-Wings and ground troops down below. The X-Wing would become the primary starfighter for the famed Rogue Squadron, which was created by Commander Luke Skywalker after the Battle of Yavin. The Starfighter would also be the preferred craft for famed pilots such as Derek Hobby-Clibbian, Wes Jansen, and Wedge Antilles, who is the only starfighter pilot to have 2 Death Stars painted on their hull. The X-Wing would prove pivotal to the Empire's defeat during the Galactic Civil War, and would see continued use after the formation of the New Republic. Make sure you hit that like button if you enjoyed this video, and please subscribe to my channel. You can always change your mind later. May the Force be with you.